we're coming to a point where we're going to diverge from the status quo a little bit, and it doesn't necessarily. I think some people will be really drawn to it. Yeah. I think some people won't want to be a part of it.
Episode number 10.
Episode 10. Welcome to the podcast. We're excited to talk to you today. Hope you guys have been learning a lot. We appreciate you guys returning and hopefully just digging deeper into this whole complicated mess of financial literacy and financial well-being and financial health. We're really trying to uncomplicate it. So hopefully some of that effort is leading to progress where you guys are starting to connect dots on things, understand not only where you're headed, but the right questions to ask the right people to help you get there quicker, safer, and in the most efficient way possible. So today's just kind of a conversation. We've been having some fun chats with peers and clients and each other. We've made some insane progress this year on getting Harpeth Wealth Partners to where we ultimately feel like it needs to be. It's an ongoing and forever process, but we've really made some headways into what we think the right direction for any financial planning company is. So we're going to talk about financial planning as a topic, the
evolution of it.
The history of it, where we think it's going, and why we think we're doing the right things by taking the measures that we are doing. That being said, let's kick off. So, Josh, what are you reading right now?
So, right now I'm reading a book called The Checklist. Let me get over here to the mic. Checklist Manifesto. And it's a neurosurgeon that wrote it. And basically talking about standard operating procedures and how to implement that in your practice, whether it's a business or just your household with your kids, like doing anything like that. Just having that SOP is so important to set yourself up for success in anything that you're doing. And it just kind of goes right into our financial planning.
That's awesome. They in the military, back in the military, and something I've implemented into how I work in this current profession is what was defined as the OODA loop. Have you ever heard of the OODA loop? So the OODA loop was big for pilots, and it was OODA. So you were on a constant cyclical, your brain should always be doing the OODA loop, right? And that is observe, orient, decide, and then act, right? So I observe my situation, I orient myself to those observations, I decide what has to happen next, and then I act on that decision. And then right after my decision, or right after my actions on that decision, obviously that's going to produce some sort of change in my environment. So if I have to, for a pilot, if I have to turn hard left, now I'm facing a new horizon, a new direction, and all these things have changed. Am I at a new elevation? So again, I'm observing all those things. I'm orienting myself to those observations, deciding,
make a decision,
and then acting again, right? And so we can kind of do that same thing in our profession, right? Like when we're helping clients, we can observe where they're at, orient the plan to kind of their environment, help them make decisions, or help them know like, hey, what's the next step?
Right.
And then help them act. And as soon as those actions are being carried out, we're automatically looking for the progress or what's changed because of those actions. So the OODA loop kind of fits that book. I thought that we probably could have a whole conversation about that because I love talking about that. I'm reading the Simon Sinek book, Find Your Why.
Yep.
If you haven't seen his TED Talk on his whole conversation about finding your why, operating from your why, like it's a very interesting conversation. He's obviously very brilliant when it comes to that stuff. We've made some changes recently, and we're still like evolving into these
continuous
change.
evolution. It's never going to stop.
But it's dramatic
Right.
from what we were
What we were
doing,
taught. Yeah.
what we were taught, what the industry says is normal to do, to where we think we should be going.
Right.
And,
Yeah, I wrote down right here. It's a move from selling products to selling advice.
right. And the notion of confusion and anxiety and all these things that oftentimes financial planning was perpetuating. It wasn't solving the problem, it was adding to it. Getting people out of the being present to where they are, and worried about future problems that we have little to no control over, making all these assumptions, telling people these crazy things. It wasn't solving problems. So what we need to do is kind of say, okay, how do we back this up and actually solve problems for clients?
Right.
And I think with that book, Find Your Why, one of the things that we've implemented is in our early onboarding process, helping clients to create, maybe find, or maybe define their financial purpose. And oftentimes when we say financial purpose, it really is just kind of like their purpose.
Right.
Because a lot of times it's like, okay, well, my purpose in life as a dad, I want to provide these things for my daughter. And I do what I do to make my daughter's life as best as it can be. But in the same sense, my finances should align with my purpose in life.
Yep.
And if it's not, then we need to get it aligned. So
It's a good conversation to have with clients. So like asking them what is your why? And you'll see the husband and wife each other and they really don't know.
yeah,
And it's
well, because a lot of people
creating
understand,
that.
they think about it.
Yeah.
It's in their like their heart, their soul of what they want to be or what they want to do in their life, what's important to them, but they've never actually defined it,
spoke it out,
and put words to it. So that's helping people through that process is going to be kind of a new effort.
Yep.
And so part of that's why I'm reading the Find Your Why, going to Simon Sinek in his brain and saying, hey, like, how do we make our clients how do we help them define purpose, define all these things. I'm good at helping. We're good at helping clients define really intelligent goals.
right?
But purpose is something that's entirely different realm. So that's what I've been reading, which kind of leads us into our conversation today, with the simple question, like, what is financial planning? We want to talk about kind of the evolution, the history of it.
And really how new it is.
And yeah, it is. It's a baby. It's a baby as a profession. And understand, like, I think that there's like we're coming to a point where we're going to diverge from the status quo a little bit. And it doesn't necessarily, I think some people will be really drawn to it.
Yep.
I think some people won't want to be a part of it. And
Right.
so again, whenever we're talking about to like everyone out there listening, when we're saying, hey, when it's time, find the person that's a right fit for you to work with. If you need a financial professional to work with, this is part of that conversation. How do you approach financial planning? Because what we're doing may not be a good fit for you, and what other people have been doing, you might say, hey, that's not what I want. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. And
But at least we can, prep people so they know what questions to ask when they're interviewing a financial advisor.
and that's really the whole point of everything we're doing, is just making people
aware,
more intelligent, to ask the right questions at the right time. For years, our kind of shipping industry, our supply chain has evolved into what they call the just-in-time supply, just-in-time inventory systems. And I think one of the things that we're proposing here is like this notion of just-in-time financial planning, that you don't necessarily need to pay these crazy retainers, or that you don't need to like start working with someone just because somebody else said they did, but to say, hey, I actually have the knowledge to be aware that I have a financial need and a shortfall or a concern or an opportunity, and that partnering with somebody would be a really intelligent move at this time. So through the podcast, we've educated you to be aware of these time frames, to know when to ask the questions, know what questions to ask. And I think we just create happier clients, if not for us, for other advisors as well too. So, what are some examples of a just-in-time?
It's a good question. So in theory,
I think the old way of having this person that you work with, whether that person might have been charging you a retainer, or maybe you were subscribed annually to this advisor, and you might go years without needing anything from them.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you need your estate plan reviewed. Right. So you've been paying every year, and then you need this all of a sudden thing. And then on top of your annual retainer, annual fee, you're still also being billed for the, instead of doing that, I think one of the futures of financial planning might just be that there's a connection. You're paying for what you need when you need it. So if you need investment management, you're paying for just investment management at that time. When you need education planning, you're paying for just education planning at that time. When you need your 401k reviewed, you're paying for just that review at that time. So I think that through this evolution of where financial planning might be going, it's offering a buffet selection of financial things that you as a client get to know that's available, and then selecting them when you need them.
Right. It's more transactional.
Yeah. You know? And I think, well, not necessarily transactional, because there's always where I think that we have the opportunity to serve clients that not many people are doing. Like, not many people are in offering like financial vital sign monitoring.
Right.
That's an ongoing process. So there's always going to be a relationship, but you're not paying a crazy amount for that. But through financial vital sign monitoring, we can monitor our clients' needs, and all of a sudden, hey, there seems to be net worth growth here, but there wasn't any change to their insurance needs. So now I can see this, and I can call the client and say, hey, I think based on these recent changes, congratulations, you've made some great growth, but because of this growth, we need to revisit the sufficient. Is there sufficient insurance coverage? That's just one example. It's totally an example, but that would be more of this idea of like a just-in-time, kind of financial planning place that we could go through, because now we have technology to help monitor our client needs.
Right.
But that's not like where I think, before we get into where financial planning could go, like we need to really talk about like where financial planning has been. I really think that financial planning, let's try to define like what is financial planning. And if you're out there working with someone on like as a financial professional, it would be a really great idea to ask them to define financial planning for you, because I think that inside of just how people present that definition to you might tell you a lot about their
ideology or
their approach to financial planning. It's really difficult to define financial planning. And for the most part, I don't know that there is a wide enough accepted definition.
Right.
And maybe that's a good thing, because it allows people to kind of fit a niche that they're really good at.
Well, I think we do, it's our job to tailor every plan or, everything we're doing per client. So to have that, definition being very broad and out there kind of gives you that, that wiggle room to be able to make adjustments. That's best for that client.
If I'm coming in to interview you and I say, hey, Josh, like I'm pretty new at this, like what exactly is financial planning?
For me, as a broad like overview of it, I just think you have to look at the situation like holistically. So you have to bring in everything in that family to the table to be able to make the right decisions for them.
Yeah. I think for me, because if somebody were to ask me that, like if you were a prospective client and you come in and you say, hey, Brandon, like what is financial planning? I'd probably, first of all, say that's a really good question.
Yeah.
But I would immediately try to correlate financial planning to like medicine and being like dealing your interactions with a doctor. So I would say something to the effect that the best medicine available to anyone is largely preventive medicine, right? So we go to the doctor once or twice a year. We get a checkup. They take our vital signs. They put our vital signs into our medical records to start creating baselines, because
Right.
we don't like we know sometimes things are high or things are low. Like I could look up a definition of high blood pressure or high blood
Right.
sugar or high heart rate, and it would tell me it's a range thing though. But even then, there's still some people that just function normally at higher levels than other for different things.
Right.
So more important than the textbook definition of high or low is what is normal for me.
Right.
And that's established over time through
Right.
those preventive medicine visits. And as we start to adjust higher or lower from visit to visit to visit, the doctor then can make kind of these deductions of, hey, like Brandon's blood pressure is getting higher, his weight is getting a little higher. That's not the direction we want to be in. So in this case, I'm going to give him things to do right now to try to bring these back down into normal limits. Hey, Brandon, I want you to like
But
eat less.
those normal limits are your normal limits.
Right. And it's tailored to me based off of those. So now he's given me like simple things to do. Hey, Brandon, I want you to start going for a walk every day. I want you to work out. I want you to do these things, healthier diet, like focus on these little things. So that way we can get you back onto a trajectory towards long-term health. For me, that's the biggest part of financial planning. But the problem with that definition is for forever, there's been no definitive quote unquote vital signs for your finances.
Right.
And that's one of our big changes is we've started a monitoring program to record and track your financial vital signs over time, because now I can establish a baseline.
Yep.
For example, your liquidity sits at X number. Your real estate sits at X number. All of a sudden, your real estate number jumps up and your liquidity goes down.
Right.
I can gain without even having a conversation. If I'm monitoring, if I get alerted that change has happened, it's an easy assumption to say, hey, this client has probably bought a house or bought some land or bought something in the real estate sphere. So with that, now I need to call the client and say, hey, just so you know, congratulations, you're working towards your ultimate end.
Right.
This is a great move in the right direction. But let's talk about some symptoms of low liquidity.
Right.
What's it going to feel like to go from this baseline normal to having low liquidity? You might feel cash strapped for a little while. You might feel like you're a little bit broke and having to, skip your friend's $100 steak birthday dinner night because you don't have the cash. And that's just a symptom. So if you're not comfortable with these symptoms, we need to create a short-term plan to generate your liquidity higher again, to make it higher, to get it back to your baseline normal.
Right.
So these are all simple conversations that you can have through preventative financial planning. Then there is the whole other side of medicine. That's the acute / emergency care kind of stuff, right? Where, if my next doctor appointment is a year from now, because I just went, so my next doctor appointment is next May, next June, whatever. Then all of a sudden this fall, I start running a little bit of a fever, right? My heart rate's going up, getting the cold sweats at night, not feeling good. I'm not going to wait until next May, right? I'm going to call an acute care office or even my primary care doc and say, hey, doc, I'm feeling under the weather. I need to come in. He's going to, again, measure my vital signs and probably prescribe me something like a antibiotic or an antiviral med to help me get over that ailment, right?
Right.
So in that same sense, sometimes some of our clients use us on an acute care side of things as
Right.
well. Like, hey, I just got laid
got
off, or I just got a new job.
I got a new
or,
job, or
you
sold
know,
the house or something.
yeah, family dynamic change, getting married,
Yep.
different, all kinds. Like there's these acute changes in life where it's like, hey, let me go get
Right.
my symptoms checked. Let me figure out what my next steps are, because likely what I was told at my last preventive med
It's going to be
meeting
different.
was exercise a little bit more and
Yeah.
eat healthy. Now, based on these new symptoms that are just all of a sudden, the doctor is now going to not say he's not going to say exercise and eat healthy. He's going to say take these pills
Right.
and get some rest and stay hydrated.
Yep.
And then in 2 weeks, if you're not feeling better, come back. We got to know that we're on the right track. So
Right.
that's not really an easy like definition. But I think the correlation is stronger to what I think financial planning should be.
Right.
And I think too, when you look at things, I heard there was a quote, I don't remember it exactly, but it was something to the effect of like, if you feelings of fear are typically like fear and anxiety comes out of a space of thinking about the future, and regret and sorrow are typically born out of a place where we think about the past. And like, it's in the present that those things really stop existing. Like when you become present, there's like some sort of like, you know, I don't know, therapy kind of book or reading, or even maybe a conversation. I don't remember exactly, but the notion of is if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling fearful, you're probably thinking about something that is yet to happen,
Right.
and you're projecting these ideas of how it might be. The history of financial planning, we have done that to clients. Like, and I say we as an industry,
Right.
and I don't think it's intentional. And anybody that's still doing financial planning kind of in the traditional sense, they're just doing their best. Like, I
Right.
want to make it clear, like I meet financial planners all the time, and by and large, I know sometimes financial planners, financial advisors can get this like money hungry kind of bad rap, but all in all, like I meet financial planners all the time that are like incredible human beings.
Right.
But in this sense, they're doing their best based off of what they're told and how they're taught,
Based on their training.
Yeah, and based on the tools that they're given. It's nothing about anyone else, the way that they're doing it. And again, when it's time to pick your financial planner, you might want to pick the traditional route.
Yep.
But the problem is as soon as a client comes and sits down, we're sitting there trying to talk about something 30, 40 years in the future.
Right.
Planning for the future is important, but I think there needs to be like almost like a timeline of a meeting where we say, hey, we're going to talk about the future for about 10 minutes.
Right.
And then we're going to get back out of the future and we're going to talk about now. Because as long as I know
We have to have a direction.
just to direct,
To
like
go.
it's when I was in the Army, we used to do like land navigation, right? So we'd be put in the middle of nowhere, given a map, a protractor, and a compass, and we would have to find our way from point to point, right? And so I might need to walk 2 miles to get to where I'm going, but at certain points where I have to be very specific about like the direction I'm walking, I might only walk 100 like meters or 50 steps at a time, and I'll like look at my compass and I'll point it in that direction. I'll find like a tree.
Okay.
Right. So I know like I'm generally walking north, but for this next little bit, I have to be right on this line. So I'm going to walk 50 steps towards that tree. So in that sense, if I spent my whole time just thinking, hey, walk generally north, when I got to where I was going, I could be hundreds of meters off.
Right.
Right. I could be left, right of that. But if I just take 50 steps at a time towards the next tree, look at my azimuth again and take 50 more steps towards that tree, that's kind of, we should be spending a lot more time talking about the present than we do about the future. The problem is until our app has been developed, like there's been really no way to measure
Right.
short-term progress, short-term directions, short-term azimuth changes. It's always been, hey, get the client talking about the furthest away goal possible,
Right.
Because our margin of error is
Yeah.
much more widely acceptable. We have much greater chances of success if we talk about something 30 or 40 years down the road.
Yep. Run the Monte Carlo scenario and
And overwhelm them with facts. So,
Yeah.
there's an old saying that facts or statistics are a liar's best friend. And again, not calling anybody a liar. Like, I've used these
Right,
charts.
yeah.
I've done this. But what we're doing is we're making
we still use it, but we're
making
adding-
like what? Like somewhere in the realm of like 10 to 15 assumptions.
Right.
We're making educated guesses at best, and we're stacking these educated best guesses on top of one another, and basically saying, like, at the end of the conversation, we show you all these graphs and charts and numbers and
Right.
like tables and 30 plus pages of data to say, there's a 90% or there's a 75% chance that you'll be within 90% of this number.
yeah.
Like, it reminds me of Anchorman. Like 60% of the time, it works every time. And it's just one of those things where it's like, if I'm taking my clients out of the present and giving them a solid maybe built on a series of solid maybes, and saying that 75% chance of 90% accuracy here, I can't imagine that we're not only adding to their anxiety level.
Right.
Like we're not making our clients less anxious.
Right.
We're not making our clients more comfortable or more
Confident.
confident. Like, we're not helping our clients. Like, our clients are paying us to feel safe, secure, have confidence that they're doing the right thing, and a partnership to share in what is, like, it's difficult to navigate life from a financial place. Like, it's not an easy thing, and people make bad choices all the time. Like,
Right.
It's human behavior.
Yep.
So they need that partnership. It's important. So in that sense, any meeting that I have, I really want to spend like less than 10% of it talking about the future. Check in.
Right.
Like, hey, are we still is college funding for your child still important to you? Is the freedom to be work optional by the age of 60 still important to you? Do you still think that you want to like have like long-term care needs met through insurance in your late years of life? Are these things still important? Yes, they are still important. Great. Now let's look at today. Check your vital signs, your financial vital signs now, and then as long as we're making
What can we do
decisions
to
to
improve?
keep you healthy or make you healthier in the short term, we'll get there. I'll put it on my calendar some future date to remind us to have a direct, deliberate conversation about long-term care.
Yep.
But we don't need to talk about that yet.
Right.
I just know it's on the to-do list for
Right.
future. But we don't need to sit there and worry about what your health might look like when you're 83 years old.
Yeah.
That's just going to cause anxiety. Instead, what are we doing today to make tomorrow as healthy as possible?
Right.
And if we repeat that simple process day in and day out,
And I think that's why it's so important to get our clients to define their why. Because if we can get that defined, then we can take those sprints.
Well, and
I
think in the few
in the right-
cases where
in the right
we've
direction.
in the few cases where I've taken some time to, like, I say few, in the more recent times where I've actually gotten to help my clients define their financial purpose, what it becomes is this notion of when they come to me with thoughts or ideas, like, hey, Brandon, I'm thinking about taking this vacation with
or
my
buying
family.
this land, or
Things are a little tight right now, and I know the market's down. So would it make more sense for me to invest this money now, or does it make more sense for me to take this vacation? And I immediately pull up their statement of financial purpose
yep,
and look, and it's like, this client's financial purpose is so much about the freedom to enjoy time with his family.
right,
And so it's like, okay, does this expense fit into your financial purpose? And they're like, and I'll read the financial purpose that they've given me
right,
in their words.
yep,
And I'm like, do you think this expense fits inside of
It's
that
amazing
sphere.
when you do that and you can see the decision making process is so different when you're taking that approach of going, is
Well,
this why?
because they
Yeah.
immediately understand, like they give themselves permission because it's what's important to their heart and soul
Right.
and their being to spend time with their family. So in this case, they're going to say, yeah, like it does fit. I'm going to take this time. I'm going to spend time with my family. And you know what's funny is most of the time when people start to have, like it's been wild to see this notion that where, like, when the permission's given to the client, it's funny how at most of the time they'll come back and be like, hey, ironically or somehow magically, whatever, I found this extra money. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to put money into the market
Right.
to invest for my future, and we're going to take this vacation. So it really works out. Like the flip side, I was talking to someone recently and they were like, Brandon, like, I would love to work with you, but I'm really big into real estate. Great. Like
Great,
if
yeah.
real estate is your goal, let's work on that.
Right.
Like, I'm not here to say there's a best way. In fact, I'm here to tell you there's no such thing as a perfect investment.
Right.
We can only make the best investments when it's aligned with your purpose, your goal, what matters, what you're comfortable with. And if I can create this ecosystem of giving advice or advising through a process where it matches a client's comfort levels and goals and purpose in life, it matches who they are and where they want to be in the future. If
It's a lot easier to make those decisions when you have all that figured out.
that's the best.
Or
That's the
defined.
best investment we're going to make.
Right.
Like, I can tell you 3 stocks right now that are cheap
Right.
comparatively. Is that the best investment? Absolutely not.
Yep.
Right. It's not, because it doesn't consider you as the investor. And if we can get on board with tailoring those investment strategies, or just advice giving or advising, I say advising because it's a process, versus me giving you advice sounds singular. Like, I'm going to give you advice, you're going to walk away. That's
Right.
That's pointless. That's worthless. But the advising process, if we can really make that tailored to the most important things in your life, just to clarify too, like, it's really not for the client to understand how finances connect to the emotional things in life. That's what I think the financial planner's job is.
Right.
Is once I understand, hey, this is
what's important
this is
to
your
them.
purpose, this
Right.
is your why, these are your goals, these are the people that are important to you and your family, these are the considerations that we have in your day-to-day life. Like, are you likely to move in your job? Are you likely to have, are you in a career where people are changing jobs all the time? Once I start to see all this, the client just needs to communicate the things that are important to them.
Right.
For me, that's when I go and do the job to build an investment strategy, a plan,
And
a
make that
financial
connection.
strategy that fits within the boundaries of everything they said that mattered and
Right.
is important, and tailored to their comfort levels of risk. That's where I think financial planning is heading. And it's less about, hey, where do you want to be in 30 years? Yeah, you need about $2.5 million to carry on that lifestyle. So let's backwards plan for there. If all these assumptions work out the way I think they're going to work out based on best guesses, pulled together from all this historical data, then we should get you maybe within a maybe range of this maybe number. And, oh, by the way, to get there, you're going to start contributing, X number of dollars per month into this account, and we're going to do this and this. Does that sound like a good plan? Well, the client's like, I told him I did want to be work optional, and he sees my cash flow, so I know I do have the money.
Right.
So yeah, let's just do it. And then the whole time they're like, well, the market's down, the market's up, the market's doing this, the market, so they're constantly concerned, worried, anxious. And instead, because they're just thinking about, can I get where I need to be in 30 years?
Right.
Like, that's the only data point that they really have. You haven't given them any other like objects on the horizon to focus on.
And that's what's so great about the vital signs.
Where
because
if
now
I
we
can just
go-
say, like, instead of a mystical number 30 years in the future,
Right.
I can literally say, hey, your liquidity's here. How does that feel? Mm-hmm. And you're like, it feels a little low.
I'm a little tight right now.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah.
tight. Okay. Well, here, what if we did this as for over the next 6 months?
Yep.
What if we did A, B, and C? Could you push through? Could we create a sprint where
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do these things, and then we'll check in to see the progress we made and see if we've increased your health in this one area?
Right.
If your debt level, like we measure debt as a vital sign, if your debt vital sign is a little bit high,
Yep. What can we do to get it down?
what if we
you know,
created a
4%?
sprint where we paid off some of these things here
Yep.
and got your debt rate? And that might take a year.
Yep.
But what if we check in 4 months to see if you still have the appropriate cash flow
Right.
while reducing your debt level into a healthier, a more appropriate range? So we're changing, like, how much have we reduced anxiety?
I was about to say, like when you talk to the client, it's like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
I almost guarantee they feel much better.
Just knowing I
And
just
more
have to,
confident.
so it's there, we're not making any assumptions,
Right.
Right. We're quite frankly saying,
Yeah.
this is where you're at.
This is where we need to be.
If we do these things, it will be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it will take 2 months or 6 months, and I also don't know if by executing this, does it create a symptom somewhere else? If I want you to be a little bit more aggressive paying down debt, does it take away some of your spending money,
savings rate,
or savings?
yeah.
And so we might have to fine tune it. But you do the same thing when you go to the doctor. If I go to the doctor and he determines I have strep throat, he's going to give me a medication that's
Right.
probably somewhere between 7 and 20 days worth of pills. Mm-hmm. And what's he going to say? If by day 7 your fever hasn't gone down, or if by day 7 you're not starting to feel better, you're not going to be better yet.
Yeah.
But if you're not starting to feel better, come back
You
and
need to come see me. Yeah.
And why does he say that? Because it could be something else.
Right.
It could be strep throat and pneumonia, or
Right.
strep throat and whatever. So in that case, he's going to treat what he knows. It could create other symptoms. Maybe I'm allergic to the medicine they give me. So we are already planning the follow-up, that short-term follow-up, to check in on the other vital signs. And again, what's most important is just to ask the question, how are you feeling?
Right.
And that's what we've been missing. So that's
Yep.
that's where we think we're headed. That's financial planning as a whole. I think, comparing it to doctors, we were looking this up. Like in the U.S., there was some like regulatory agencies that formed over 250 years ago. I mean, we know medicine has been applied to people for
Right.
thousands of years, but even as far back as 250 years ago, we were getting like agencies to regulate what medicine is. Same thing when you compare that to financial planning. Really, financial planning didn't start becoming a career path until roughly 1970.
Yeah.
So you're comparing a 250-year-old occupation to a 50-year-old occupation.
We're still in the infancy
We
stages
are
right now.
So in that sense, I think we're in that growth timeline.
Right.
And I think it makes absolute sense to start redefining and defining what financial planning is. And if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how to define what you're doing, you're definitely not measuring how you're doing it.
Right.
And you're definitely not thinking about how to do it better. And that's, honestly, I hope that there are a ton of financial advisors listening to this, just so they start challenging themselves to also define that.
Yep.
Have direct conversations and ask clients, like, do you know what the heck financial planning is? Because I may not have done a solid job of explaining what it is I do for you.
Right.
And I think the relationships, our clients, their clients, will start to feel more comfortable, safer, and more secure in their financial purpose and financial projection, where they could be in life. That's kind of what I had on my mind today.
Yep.
Any thoughts?
I think we nailed everything
All right.
until we define it differently.
We'll talk to you guys next week about the same thing, because we're still all in this. We look forward to, if you're interested in the planning app. So it's financial planning and continuous ongoing monitoring, which is again, something I just is not being done to the level we're doing it, at least anywhere around us. So if you're interested in getting just into that program, it is affordable, it is accessible. You do not have to be like a full-on Harpeth Wealth holistic client. You can just be involved in this. It's education. So everything that we're talking about on these podcasts, we break it down into deeper detail inside of the kind of private content that we do for the subscribers. So if you have any questions, just go to our website, www.harpethwealthpartners.com, and you can click to contact us through that site or give us a call and ask us. We'll walk you through the onboarding process for that. And then, of course, if it is time for you to start working with a financial planner, we would love to be part of that interview process, that consideration process. And again, we will gladly talk to you, answer any questions, see if we're a good fit for you. And if we aren't,
if not, point you in the right direction.
We will definitely send you to the best place that we know to get you on the right path. So thanks for your time, and see you soon.
See you next time.
We hope you learned from our conversation today. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes and not intended to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions of how it might be applicable to your specific situation, please reach out to your financial professional. Of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you regarding specific questions or applications to your individual financial situation. With that, here are a few disclosures. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. With that, thank you, and we look forward to having you back. Take care.